Welcome back to Search for Truth, the podcast where we explore conflicts, cooperation, and the stories behind Southeast Asia's shifting borders. I'm Freddie.
And I'm Maya. Today, we're diving into one of the most significant security incidents the region has seen in more than a decade, the armed clash between Cambodia and Thailand that erupted on July 24, 2025.
This wasn't just a skirmish over a misunderstanding. It was the result of long-standing disputes, political rhetoric, and years of mistrust simmering along the border.
And what makes it even more important is where it happened, near the Priya Vihir Temple. That site isn't just a geographical point, it's deeply symbolic for both nations. For Cambodia, it's a matter of national pride, and for Thailand, it represents sovereignty and security.
In this episode, we'll unpack how the clash unfolded, from the historical roots of the border dispute, to the immediate spark that triggered fighting, to the humanitarian toll and diplomatic reactions.
We'll also look at how the media shaped public opinion, and whether the fragile ceasefire signals a path to de-escalation, or if it's just a pause before tensions flare again.
So, stay with us. This is a story about more than just two armies facing off. It's about history, identity, and the fragile peace that Southeast Asia depends on. The armed clash that erupted on July 24, 2025 between Cambodian and Thai forces along their shared border marked one of the most serious escalations of tension between the two neighbors in more than a decade. The incident was not merely the product of a single misunderstanding, rather, it was the culmination of long-standing disputes, political rhetoric, and mutual suspicion that had built up in the months leading to the violent confrontation. To understand how the clash began, one must examine the historical context, the immediate triggers, and the sequence of events that unfolded on that fateful day.
What historical disputes have shaped tensions along the Cambodia-Thailand border, and why has the Priya Vihir Temple been such a persistent flashpoint?
Cambodia and Thailand share an 803-kilometer-long border, much of which has been disputed for more than a century. At the heart of these disputes lies conflicting interpretations of colonial-era maps drawn in the early 20th century. The most famous flashpoint has been the Priya Vihir Temple, an ancient Khmer Hindu temple located atop a cliff in Priya Vihir province. Although the International Court of Justice (ICJ) ruled in 1962 that the temple belonged to Cambodia, disputes over the surrounding 4.6 square kilometers of land persisted, often sparking clashes between soldiers and even artillery duels in the late 2000s and early 2010s. While large-scale confrontations subsided after 2012 due to improved diplomacy, lingering mistrust and the lack of a fully demarcated border left room for recurring tension. By 2025, both countries were once again facing political and security challenges that made the border issue more sensitive than usual.
What political rhetoric and incidents in the months leading up to July 2025 fueled mistrust and increased military activity between Cambodia and Thailand?
The months leading to the July 2025 clash were marked by heightened political rhetoric and increased military activity on both sides. In Cambodia, the government emphasized defending sovereignty against what it described as foreign threats following media reports suggesting that Thai leaders might take a harsher stance on border enforcement. In Thailand, domestic political instability created a vacuum in which acting officials often resorted to nationalist statements to rally support. Border patrols intensified on both sides during June and July, with small incidents reported by local villagers, including accusations of illegal logging, cross-border smuggling, and soldiers trespassing. Although such reports were common in border communities, this time they coincided with political speeches and aggressive media coverage that magnified their significance.
Friends and associates.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to count in 1, 2, 3.
What specific incident on the morning of July 24, 2025, sparked the armed clash near Priya Vihir province, and how did both sides interpret it?
The immediate spark of the armed clash occurred in the early hours of July 24, 2025 in an area near the Dangrek Mountains, close to Priya Vihir province. According to Cambodian reports, a group of Thai soldiers crossed into what Cambodia considers its territory and attempted to remove border markers that had been recently installed by Cambodian authorities. Thailand, however, claimed that its troops were patrolling within Thai territory and that Cambodian soldiers had advanced into their side. Eyewitness accounts from villagers living nearby stated that the confrontation began with verbal exchanges and warning shots fired into the air. What could have remained a tense standoff escalated rapidly when gunfire was exchanged between patrol units. Both sides later accused each other of firing the first live rounds.
How did the confrontation escalate after the first shots were fired, and what kind of weaponry and reinforcements were used by both sides?
Once the first shots were fired, reinforcements were quickly mobilized. Cambodian border units stationed nearby rushed to support their comrades, while Thai commanders dispatched additional troops and armored vehicles to secure their side of the border. Within hours, exchanges of small arms fire spread along several points of the contested frontier. By mid-morning, both sides were reportedly using mortars and rocket-propelled grenades, raising fears of a wider conflict. Local residents fled their villages as artillery shells landed near civilian areas. Humanitarian organizations reported that several hundred families were displaced on both sides of the border within the first 24 hours of the clash. Casualties were initially difficult to confirm, but both militaries acknowledged losses among their personnel.
How did Cambodian and Thai leaders respond to the clash, and what role did international organizations such as ASEAN and the UN play in urging restraint?
As news of the clash spread, officials in Phnom Penh and Bangkok issued statements blaming the other side. Cambodia's Senate President Hun Sen condemned what he described as Thai aggression, vowing that Cambodia would never allow its sovereignty to be violated. Thailand's acting prime minister responded by asserting that Thailand had the right to defend its territory and accused Cambodia of provocation. International organizations and regional partners, including the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, quickly called for restraint. The United Nations expressed concern and urged both sides to avoid further escalation. Despite these appeals, sporadic fighting continued through the day and into the evening of July 24.
Why is the disputed area near Priya Vihir considered both symbolically and strategically significant for Cambodia and Thailand?
The location of the clash was not coincidental. The disputed area near Priya Vihir is both symbolically and strategically important. For Cambodia, the temple and surrounding land represent national pride and the sacrifices of past generations to protect territorial integrity. For Thailand, maintaining a firm stance at the border appeals to nationalist sentiment and reinforces its claim of protecting sovereignty. Thus, even a minor incident in this area carried the potential to ignite larger hostilities. Moreover, both militaries had increased their presence in recent weeks, meaning that soldiers were already on high alert. In such conditions, the possibility of miscalculation or overreaction was extremely high.
Select con khai khai bánh tờ cát khai. Tờ cát. Cát cát. Nào học học ơi. Tao thôi cái bộ đây. Tiếp, cái nông tiếp, chốt. Tiếp. Mùi.
How were local communities on both sides of the border affected by the fighting, and what measures did authorities take to shelter displaced families?
The immediate impact of the clash was felt most severely by local communities. Villagers were forced to leave their homes, livestock, and crops behind as they sought safety. Schools and markets near the border were shut down, and humanitarian workers faced difficulties accessing conflict zones due to ongoing skirmishes. In Cambodia, provincial authorities in Pria Bahir and Otter Minchi set up temporary shelters for displaced families. In Thailand, evacuation centers were opened in Sisaket province. Reports emerged of families separated during the sudden displacement, adding to the humanitarian burden.
How did Cambodian and Thai media outlets frame the border clash, and in what ways did public opinion harden as a result of media and social media coverage?
Both Cambodian and Thai media outlets covered the events intensively, often emphasizing national perspectives that fueled public outrage. Cambodian newspapers highlighted images of border markers allegedly destroyed by Thai troops, while Thai television focused on alleged Cambodian incursions. Social media platforms became battlegrounds of narratives, with citizens from both countries posting patriotic messages, photos, and videos of the clashes. Public opinion hardened quickly, making it more difficult for leaders on both sides to adopt conciliatory measures. For many Cambodians and Thais, the clash was not just about territory but about national dignity.
What steps were taken by military commanders, ASEAN, and both governments on July 24, 2025 to prevent the situation from escalating into full-scale war?
By the evening of July 24, 2025, diplomatic channels were activated in an effort to prevent the situation from spiraling into full-scale war. Senior military commanders from both sides established direct communication lines to agree on a temporary ceasefire. Meanwhile, ASEAN officials proposed urgent meetings of the Regional Border Committee, RBC, to facilitate dialogue. Although the ceasefire was fragile and sporadic skirmishes continued in the days that followed, the efforts signaled recognition that neither country could afford a prolonged conflict. The risk of economic disruption, civilian suffering, and international condemnation pressured both governments to seek diplomatic solutions despite domestic political pressures.
What does the July 24, 2025 armed clash reveal about the fragility of peace in contested border areas, and what are the potential long-term implications for Cambodia-Thailand relations?
The armed clash between Cambodia and Thailand on July 24, 2025 was the product of deep-rooted historical disputes, heightened nationalist rhetoric, and immediate tactical miscalculations along the border. What began as a tense patrol encounter escalated into a full-day exchange of fire involving heavy weapons, causing casualties and displacing civilians. While the incident underscored the fragility of peace in contested border areas, it also reminded both nations of the importance of dialogue and regional cooperation. Whether the clash becomes a turning point toward renewed conflict or a wake-up call for stronger mechanisms of conflict resolution will depend on the political will of both governments and the role of regional institutions in mediating disputes. The events of July 24, 2025 will be remembered not only as a tragic day of violence but also as a stark reminder of how unresolved historical disputes can quickly resurface, threatening the peace and stability of Southeast Asia.